All right, today we're going to work on one more kind of pictorial. If you paid attention with the key terms for Unit 2, you may have noticed that there was another type of drawing that was mentioned in the key terms that we haven't done yet. Anybody notice which one that was? No, that was the first one we did. Multiview drawings, that's it. The one we're going to do last is multiview drawings, and that's the one that's often used pretty regularly because you need multiview drawings to be able to make what are called working drawings, or drawings of an actual object when it's going to be manufactured or produced. Multiview drawings are two-dimensional drawings. So this is the only pictorial that we're going to consider a pictorial that's actually a two-dimensional drawing. So it's a two-dimensional representation of a three-dimensional object, but it's just a two-dimensional drawing. But it's called multiview because it's more than one drawing. So a multiview drawing is two or more two-dimensional drawings of a three-dimensional object. And there's some specific rules about how they're created that we're going to learn about today. It's going to relate very directly to how we were doing some drawing or sketching of the initial sketches that we were doing for modeling the shapes in Inventor. All right, so let me explain the layout of typical multiview drawings, then we're going to do a couple for practice. So multiview drawings are done on orthographic graph paper, which is the paper that's already in your engineer's notebook, the squares. And they're done in what's referred to as an orthographic projection. An orthographic projection is taking a three-dimensional object and then pretending it's like in a glass box and that there's a light source on the inside of the object and that the light rays coming out of the object will then project on the edges, on the sides of the glass box, a two-dimensional shape, like a shadow, if you will. Okay? And it's those lines and the lines that would come straight out from the object that would touch that glass box that will give us the drawings that we're looking at. Now, you may or may not understand what that looks like just from listening to me, but we're going to go through and understand how that works. So, let's start with, any multiview drawing, we're going to do multiview drawings. You can do multiview drawings of any type. You can have a front drawing, a top drawing, a side drawing, a left side, right side, a bottom drawing, a back drawing. For most of the multiview drawings we're going to do three of them. We're going to do a front view. Directly above that, we're going to do a top view. And directly to the side of that, we're going to do a side view. So that set of three drawings is what we're most typically going to do for multiviews. There's some exceptions to that, but most of the time that's what we're going to do. Now, one of the rules is that they have to line up. So the top has to line up with the front, and the front has to line up with the side. Because when you're working with these drawings, you have to be able to match up those features from one drawing to the other. So the first thing you're always going to do when you're doing multiview drawings is lay out the area that you need to put the multiview drawings in, which is done much the same way we've done with getting that box that we're going to put our object in. So let's just start with number one, because it's number one. And we're going to figure out how much space we're going to need on your paper to do it. Question? Kind of like that, but there's going to be space between them. Okay? So you don't want the drawings to connect to each other, like they would be if they were folded. So looking at number one, first of all, to understand what's the front. The front of an object is going to be, for our purposes for these, the front is going to be that one that's kind of, if you see it from this direction, this is going to be the front over here. So the front of number one is going to be that L-shaped side there. But before we even start drawing the features, we're just going to figure out, well, what's the dimensions of the front? What two dimensions, if we talk about the three dimensions being the width, the height, and the depth, what two dimensions will the front of our object show us? will the front view show us? The length, well, we got width, height, and depth. So I think you meant that, but use those words. Width, height, and depth. Jacob? Width and height. Okay? Those are the two dimensions the front will show us. Right? What two dimensions will the top show us if we have width, height, and depth? Width and depth. And what two dimensions will the side show us? Height and depth. So you see each dimension of the three dimensions is used twice. And that's one of the reasons doing these three views is a good way to do it, because each dimension is used twice then. All right, so looking at the width and height of this object, it's 5 wide and, excuse me, it's 8 wide and 5 tall. So I'm just going to do a little math here. So I'm going to need 8 over here and 5 over here. Then the top, I'm going to need 5 for the depth. So I'm going to need 5 over here and then the same 8 for the width. And on the side, I'm going to need 5 again for the depth right here. Sorry, no, that's wrong. That's 5 for the height and 5 for the depth right here. Okay? We want to put a little bit of a buffer space in between the drawings because we don't want them right on top of each other. So let's plan for 3 squares in between each of the drawings. Right? So now we can lay out our first drawing at the top of the page. At the top, you can make just a light rectangle that's 5 by 8. That's going to be the top. I'm going to skip 3 for the space. Then again 5 by 8 for the front because the height and the depth of this object is the same. I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the width is going to be the same thing. And then I'm going to come over 3 blocks, 3 spaces, and then 5. For that. So that's going to lay out a square for my top, for my front, and for my side. Now to draw the multi-view drawing, we simply go with one shape at a time, and we fill in the features. So let's start with the front, because that's where we usually started. For the front, we're going to see just this L shape. It's going to be 2 wide on the side, 2 wide on the bottom. So I'll just draw that in. Object lines darken in for the edges. That's going to be the front view. For the top view, we're going to see there's these 2 little rectangles that make up the tops of the shapes up here and here that are 2 wide and 1 deep. And then there's a line that's going to make up the back of the shape and a line that's going to make up the sort of the side of the tower there. And then down, looking down over that lower section, we're going to see that sideways U shape. And remember that goes up 1.5 units. It's going to be here, and it goes in 3 units. Four units. That's the top view. Notice how this vertical part here lines up with this part up here, because that feature is the same in both drawings. And in the front view, we're going to see not quite squares. We're going to see two rectangles that are 1.5 wide and 2 inches tall, that are the ends of these forks here. The inside section here is going to have a solid line because there's a base there, and also at the top of it, because it's that's where that fold is, if you will. And then up top, there's a little U shape that's 1 unit down, 3 units over, and 1 unit up. All right, now this drawing is almost done, but not quite done. Remember back to our line conventions notes that we took. We talked about different types of lines in drawings. The first kind we talked about was construction lines. We've used those whenever we draw our boxes. We use those in perspective drawings. The second type of lines we talked about was object lines, I believe. Object lines are the dark lines that make up the outside edges of a shape. What was the third type of line we talked about? Hidden lines. And when are hidden lines used?
When the view that you're using, you can't see.
Exactly. There's a feature you can't see. So looking at this shape, is there any features that we can't see from any of the different perspectives? Exactly. From the front, there's this part right here. This line doesn't line up with anything down here. And also, it's kind of hard to tell, oh, this here too, this part here doesn't line up with anything over here. It always should line up with something. This is an example of where we're going to use hidden lines, because there are features that are behind this face, but we still need to represent them there. So you're going to use the dotted lines to create hidden lines for where this feature is in this view and where this feature is in this view. So I'm just going to, where they line up, draw a dotted line there, and where it lines up, draw a dotted line there. Yep. Yes. So looking at the object, at the bottom part it goes 4 in, so it's going to be right in the middle. Right there. Yep. And on the top it goes down 1, so it's going to be right along the middle.
Oh, I see.
See what I'm saying? So now you don't have to add these lines I'm about to add, but I'm just going to show you all of the lines match up between the drawings. These lines match up, these lines match up, these lines match up, these lines match up, these lines match up. Even these lines match up if we look at them as bending about a 45-degree angle. And in multi-view drawings, they all have to line up. If you do a multi-view drawing and you kind of put this one down here a little bit, it's wrong. They have to line up. Because when someone's looking at this, if someone was going to manufacture this, they need to be able to look at this. Okay, I can see a hidden line here, but I'm not sure what that feature is. But if I trace over here, oh, and I see from this view, I can see that it goes down like that. Then I know that that feature is up there. And the same thing with this. Or looking at this from the top, it's like, well, I can see object lines here, but I can't tell from this view how that actually is shaped. But then if I look down here, I can see from the side view that this is much lower than this part here. And it's necessary that those features line up so that you can see all those things. We're going to eventually do it. The other thing that we can do in multi-views, which we can only do in multi-views, is add dimensions. The only views that we can add dimensions on are multi-view drawings, because these are drawn true to scale for whatever the object is. All right, any questions? Then I think you probably have enough room that if you did one on the top of the page, you have enough room for one on the bottom of the page. Go ahead and pick one of them out from that sheet of 12, the first sheet of 12, and go ahead and plan out your squares for where it goes, and then start drawing it. And I'm going to come around and see how everybody's doing and help you if you have any questions. You can use this one right now.